He's fit. She's fit. Welcome back to another episode with Mr. Whitfit. If you didn't see episode 1 on the chakras, go back and take a look at that. Because I'm moving forward in segment 2 on the chakras to get into something that's very important and something you want to be conscious of. We had mentioned, and I had mentioned, that the 7 main chakras that we actually have in the body, when they're interrupted, it's sort of like taking a water hose that has water flowing through it smoothly and kinking the hose. Typically, when that happens, what we want to do is unkink the hose. Why? So obviously the water can flow freely. That also is true with energy. We're going to tie in the chakras to the overall concept of synergy. As in episode 1, I mentioned that I'd worked with Peter during his time of having heart disease. I'd also worked with young guys wanting to put on muscle. Interestingly, the 4th chakra, as well as the root chakra, when you want to put on size, has to deal with survival, eating, building, resting. In order to do so, you got to have an abode, a place to live. And interestingly, when you talk about the West and East and different countries, in episode 1, I referenced the vortexes of energy that I felt when flying from Northern California to Puerto Rico. Now I'm going to tie all this into how we keep our chakras balanced in various different lifestyles, various different cultures around the world. And the processing center that processes all of our energy is our mind, our brain, our thoughts. And often, like a computer, we have to turn our thoughts off. But in the Western part of the world, sometimes that can be a challenge due to technology. But also we can use technology as a means of listening to relaxing music that deals exactly with different vortexes of energy. Such as typically when you take a yoga class in the West, you in a room with a group of people listening to some type of relaxing music doing movement. Which brings me to my point that we can utilize a visual cue, such as colors, to help us relax. We can also utilize breathing. And lastly, movement. Why do I say lastly movement? Let's say if a person's 80 years of age, or let's say they're extremely young, and they have to sit in a bed because they're recovering from an illness. But one of the aspects behind the illness is to learn to relax. Well, learning to relax can be a challenge if you can't move when you're young and you're used to running around. Well, now we can get into the chakras and the power of vortexes and energy, and how this energy, when we tune into it, such as listening to the melody of a nice song that we like, or listening to the waves of the ocean. If we focus our thoughts, our energy on that exclusively, such as when a person is focused in prayer, or such as an athlete when he's competing, all of his energy is boom, there, nowhere else. And it can be a challenge if you've never done it before, but I'm going to challenge you in reverse. Everybody has typically something they like. They like to do, something they like to eat, something they like to wear that makes them feel a certain way. It's a good place to begin if you like, what is this guy talking about? Well, what I'm talking about is you tuning into you. For example, the different fast food companies, they're masters of this. They associate food with a certain feeling, state of mind. Keeps people coming back because the food does make them feel a certain way. They didn't say anything about it's going to be healthy for you. They just giving you a certain feeling, emotion, state. Your vortex, your energy. gets you high for a little while. Then boom, you go on about your business, then you got to get that high again. Now, if you're stressed and this is really bad, then you start to utilize that non-conducive energy flowing in your body in a way that's going to double down. Meaning that you're stressed out, now you're eating something that's going to make you feel good for a while, but it's not even good for you physically, and there's a domino effect that kicks in. Now, these different vortexes of energy, such as when people have heart disease that I've worked with, the first thing I actually look at is not the effect, but the cause. Was the cause the food? Was the cause how they were thinking? What was it? Because when I isolate the cause, then the effects become secondary because we're going to root out the cause first. Sometimes it's food. And they're like, well, I can't just stop eating whatever I was eating because they're going to have to go to another state and they're not ready for that. Shock. So I teach them first to listen to frequency, which is very powerful. Okay? Earthquake. People feel an earthquake. They're here living in California. I hope we don't have one now. Because it gets very real from that point. And I've experienced it. The Loma Prieta. I felt that. The universe was talking to us. Boom. Okay. But having experienced that and lived through many different earthquakes in California, I'm like, wow, I relax now. The reason I relax, I know I'm not in control. This is where learning to relax and utilizing these different cues of visualizing, breathing, come in at. Now, when you're completely healthy, you're fit, or let's say even an athlete used to moving his body all the time. You know, a Jerry Rice type, played sports for years, 20 years in the NFL. When you stop playing, you just don't shut your body off. This brings you back to myself and part of my journey as an athlete. I never played professionally, but I did play in college. And I enjoyed myself, but I still had the passion to work out and exercise when I stopped playing. And fortunately, I began working for founder of 24 Hour Fitness years ago, founder of Family Fitness Centers years ago, and I learned a lot from both companies, both systems, but more importantly, I learned about you, the public. What I learned is what motivates people in exercise often is not necessarily what people actually need to be doing. You know that based upon the feedback that you're getting from your health, physically, as well as internally. See, the internal, whatever's going on internal will manifest to the physical. Now, in the case of the fourth chakra in heart disease, typically in the West, it's typically a lot of stress. And that stress is connected into perception. And why do I say perception? Because how we look at things determines value. And if you think having a Mercedes is important, or a Porsche, or BMW, whatever it is that you have, or having a 5,000 square foot house, or whatever it is that you value, right? Well, if you don't have it, you may get stressed. And on the flip side of that, if we go to India and we talk to the sadhus, the holy men, there's no such thing as being homeless because the earth is our home. See, I get that. And I understand how a lot of Westerners don't. That's the reason I'm giving you two from a different perspective. Now, I'll share something very personal with you. Being here in San Diego, right next to the border, I'm very fortunate to be able to go back and forth often to both countries. And interestingly, in episode 1, I mentioned the flight of flying to Puerto Rico and how I felt this vortex of energy change. Imagine going from one block to the next block and you feel a vortex change. Or from this spot, which is less than 10 minutes away, to this spot, and things change like you won't believe. This time around, experiencing this, I was astute to what was going on. Así son las cosas, which means that's just the way it is, right? That's a phrase as I'm becoming more fluent in Spanish, and I look forward soon to doing a complete episode in Spanish. All of my brothers and sisters in Mexico that I've embraced and loved like family, because we all are one family. As Bob Marley says, one love, one world, or one world, one love. I felt a huge energy vortex change from going to the US, which is very grounded in the root chakra, and going into Mexico, which is the heart chakra. The fourth chakra is very open. People are very open and treat you like family. We all connect. And interestingly, I never take things at face value, especially when I'm sharing something like this to other people. I've asked friends, what do you feel when you go from, let's say, San Diego to Mexico, and vice versa, from Mexico to San Diego? And they all say the same thing. Wow, man, I go to Mexico, I feel relaxed. Wow. Because as many people don't know, the reason I say don't know, often the media reports, mainstream media, about the downside. They never focus on the upside, all the beautiful things that are going on, such as myself, sharing, caring, giving, receiving, in a culture that I've actually embraced, right? Beautiful culture. But the media, they got their thing, and hey, thank God we have social media now. Because some of these realities that people speak of and are putting out there, the universe said it's time, right? I love that. Now, the heart chakra being open in Mexico, and one thing about the heart chakra is the heart is very sensitive because it's intuitive. People deal with you based upon you. And a really good friend of mine, his wife is from Thailand. And he's gone there many times, and he knows that I'm in the yoga, and I've been trying to get him in the yoga because he always tells me, man, I need to relax. So I'm trying to give him the tools in order to do that. He says, no, man, if you ever go to Thailand with it, man, you're going to love it. I says, why is that? He says, well, first, they buy what you buy. I says, what's that? He says, man, they don't treat people based upon what they have. They treat people based upon how you treat other people. And I was like, wow, is that right? He says, no, man, you know, in the West where we live, it's sort of like who you are is what you got. I said, okay, I understand what you're saying. So I look forward to experiencing that. In grounded areas such as the root chakra is about survival, the red chakra, food, shelter, clothing, and we all need that. The earth is physical. We're not spirit beings. We are spirit beings going through a physical experience. And this physical experience means that we have to tune into the realities of maintaining a physical body.